evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of Trustees. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve, would you like to begin the roll call of members?
Sure. Good evening, Steve Corona with the 5th District.
Glenna Yale with the 2nd District.
Tom Smith, 3rd District.
Maria Norman, Member at Large.
Ann Duff, Member at Large.
Jordan Lebemoff, the 4th District.
And I'm Julie Hollingsworth, elected from District 1. And from my far left is Barb Trout, Clerk of the Board. Good evening. And our Superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we will begin with a pretty exciting recognition, and that is the ISTA Hoosier Educator of the Year. It's recommended that the board recognize Toll's New Tech teacher, Carissa Richardson Larman, who was named Hoosier Educator of the Year by the Indiana State Teachers Association. Each year, the ISTA names a Hoosier Educator of the Year in partnership with the Horace Mann Educators Corporation. Carissa Richardson Larman was chosen for excellence in teaching, advocacy for the profession, community engagement, and leadership in professional development. She has served on the Fort Wayne Education Association's Executive Board, acted as an association representative, and worked on discussion, compensation, and Every Student Succeeds Act implementation teams. Carissa administers the Fort Wayne Sister Cities Student Exchange Program is in the last year of pursuing national board certification in early adolescent science. So please come forward as your name is read. Carissa Richardson Larman. And Toll's New Tech is Tim Captain, principal. No? Ladies, would you like to take a group picture also, Julie and Marlena? Okay.
Are you coming up? Is the proper, want to come up?
So, Carissa, are there any words of wisdom that you would like to share with us?
Well, I got to represent the RA, represent Fort Wayne Community Schools at the RA and Fort Wayne Education Association, and one of the big things that I said is, you know, we say that it takes a village to support our children, but really it takes an army to support our teachers. And I'm very thankful for my army. It starts within my building with my leadership and my fellow teachers. It goes into the Fort Wayne Education Association with Julie as our leader, and then it also goes into my friends and family. I have some great teachers that I've taught with here in Fort Wayne Community Schools that have been, they've just supported me all the way, and then down to my mom, my dad, my sister, and then my husband, who's excellent and kind of keeps me in line.
Great. And so you teach science?
I teach science and engineering.
Okay.
7th grade science and then 7th and 8th grade
And
engineering.
how long have you been teaching?
This is my 10th year going into my 11th.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
not been that long.
It has been that long.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And again, like you said, I'm sure you're representative of a lot of the great teachers and that we have in Fort Wayne Community Schools and a lot of your colleagues. So
Yes, we have some amazing teachers that don't necessarily get the recognition that they deserve. So I'm kind of standing up here for many, many other people.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have the consent agenda, and these are items that come to us every meeting. They include the minutes from our last meeting on June 12th. It includes vouchers and payroll, vouchers ending June 26th, payroll ending May 26th. Then there's the personnel report. Dr. Robinson, was there anything you wanted to highlight on the personnel report, or?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. And then also the temporary interfund loan, and that comes to us every year, correct? And that just, we're not allowed to maintain a deficit in certain funds, and that just takes care of the necessary transfers to make sure that doesn't happen. Is that right, Kathy? Basically,
Just in case we need it.
okay?
Yeah.
So, any motion? Second?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Steve. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, here we go. So next, we have, get this out of the way. A couple of contracts. We have the Learning Forward contract. It's recommended that the board approve a Learning Forward contract totaling $394,600 for the 2017-18 school year to support the continuation of professional learning. Our partnership with Learning Forward continues to thrive. Learning Forward will continue to focus on working with cabinet, central office, building-based administrators, and instructional coaches to grow professional learning with a focus on theory of change, learning designs, and implementation district-wide. So the contract is kind of in two parts: district leadership for about $315,000, which includes cabinet, interventionists, and core leaders of learning. And is that QIT teams?
Right, that'll be the principals and the leader, and the QITs, the leading and learning is our levels.
Okay, right.
That's the Get and Chris group.
And then instructional coaches for about $79,000. The district leadership contract will be paid primarily from the Teacher Incentive Fund grant, with the interventionist learning community being funded by Coordinated Early Intervening Services funds. The cost of the coaching contract is paid by Title II Part A grant. And Laura Kane is available to answer any questions. We have a motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Ann. Any questions? Okay. Well, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on to the K-12 Insight contract. The contract extension covers services relating to Let's Talk, as well as our platform for survey, implementation, and analysis. This contract will auto-renew each year for a 3-year term. The annual cost of the contract is $130,822 and is funded by the Teacher Incentive Fund, the TIF grant. The related information: the survey platform of K-12 Insight informs the work around professional learning, teacher evaluation, and the culture and climate of the district. Other support regarding survey platforms and analysis will continue as needed. Let's Talk is a way for the district to monitor the pulse of the community while giving parents, teachers, staff, students, and community members a 24/7 channel for ideas, questions, concerns, and praise. Let's Talk embodies our district's commitment to listening and responding with care. Through the Let's Talk platform, our district demonstrates authentic communication, which includes reading, reflecting on, and promptly responding to stakeholder input. And questions can be answered by Laura Kane, Assistant Superintendent for Strategic Initiatives. Do we have a motion?
So moved that we approve.
Thanks, Glenna. Thanks, Tom.
I have some questions for Laura.
Yep, go ahead.
Laura, how long have we been using Let's Talk?
Let's Talk has been in place for the last 2 years of the last 3-year grant.
2 years of the last 3-year grant?
Yeah, so the first year of that contract, we didn't have Let's Talk, so it came on in the last 2 years.
Can you, and you don't have to do it anytime soon, but I'm going to vote for this. I particularly like that it's going to be paid for the next 2 years. with the TIF grant, and that's what the TIF grant is for. But I'd like to see some tracking as to how it's matured over the years. Do we have 300 people using it the first year? Are we up to 500? And then I would suspect that you would be able to give me a snapshot of the types of questions that are being asked. I'm praising this teacher, I like what's going on here versus, you know, I'm upset about ABC. I would like to see that, and I'd like to see some data on the participation that we're getting with our surveys. Are they growing in terms of overall participation? And what are the general results of the surveys? So I get a feel for what's happening in the community, where the hot buttons may be, what people are liking. That would help me when we come up, if I'm sitting on the board again for another renewal, to really make a determination as to whether we stay with the K-12 Insight program or whether there may be another viable or more viable program out there.
Sure, happy to do that.
A couple of things. There is a portion, remember, that this board will be involved in with the community forums. And that was a part of our last contract, so it's not, we're not paying for that. That's a part of the service. We've had that as a conversation. One of the intents of that is to do exactly what you're talking about, to get a pulse of whether the things we're getting, and there are reports that we can share to summarize the kinds of things that we're getting. But we also want to kind of test the waters to see if we are getting something different from these focus groups than the categories of things. So as a part of that whole community forum idea, we'll be doing some more research as to whether this has given us an accurate picture, where are we missing information, but I think your questions are valid. Who's actually using it? The kinds of things that I get are, it might, well, I'll just let Laura, we'll do a comparison of at the beginning and now. Because what I'm finding is people are finding the kinds of things we're getting aren't necessarily as controversial. People are actually using it just to gain information. So I think that is also an analysis we need to have Laura give you. What kinds of things were we getting at the beginning? What kinds of things are people asking now? So we'll do that. But we'll also tie it to that need to go out and actually talk to people. Because not everybody's necessarily going to use that tool.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. That's a great question.
Also, Laura, I've been interested in the customer service aspect of the Let's Talk, as far as not only are they getting a response within a timely a period, but also how satisfied are they with the actions or the way things are addressed and resolved. It's one thing to get a form letter, you know, the next day. It's another thing to feel like you were heard and the problem that or issue has been dealt with adequately. So I would be real interested in any data related to that.
Absolutely.
And I think probably one of the things we could do is probably have a work session and talk through all of that. Because I think there's so many different pieces to it. And maybe a review of what kind of things and how we do handle that. Because we very rarely just send a form letter. All of that's based upon a personal contact. And I get notified when things have not been handled. So we can kind of like show you how we track to make sure that somebody is, and there is a customer satisfaction component.
Good.
So I think maybe it might just be better to have a work session and talk all that out, so we can show you.
Thank you.
And Laura, remind me again, when's the TIF grant run out? Is it
Yeah, so
next?
the official grant ends at the end of September of this year, 2017, but we've applied for a no-cost extension, so we'll have another full year of monies and use it
Maybe.
again. No, we've already been approved.
Oh, we've already gotten
Yeah,
a
it's kind of a.
one-year extension?
Right, you can only apply for a one-year extension, so yeah, actually a report goes in here in the next week or so, but yeah, we've tentatively already had a visit and had a phone call, and
Okay.
that's a fairly typical piece with our federal grants to apply for a no-cost extension, as long as
So-
you've been good stewards of the money up until then, you usually get approved.
I assume that doesn't mean we're getting more money,
It does not.
just means you get an extra year to
It gets-
use it.
Yeah, what actually is, it's the money that we were always approved, from the original. And they are very aware that sometimes in that first year, it takes a little while to get started and be thinking and designing and planning and spending. So they understand that sometimes you just don't spend it all in the 5 years you were given, that you sometimes need an extension.
Right.
So that's what we're in. Come post-September 30th, 2017, we'll be in a no-cost extension until September 30th, 2018.
So does that mean we'll be able to give another year of stipends?
So no, well, we're, as soon as we have I-STEP data for this past school year, you can't spend that no-cost extension necessarily on extra stipends during the no cost, but you can cover whatever you have planned to do. For instance, we were able to use the TIF dollars to pay for an increase in raising teachers' salary to the base because they had slipped behind. So we'll be able to continue that because that was already a part of what we had committed to over the course of the last 3 years. But we won't be able to pay that stipend, and we've already made plans and know what to do to cover that.
So will we have given 5 years of stipends?
That's correct.
When we give the one for this,
Right. And
Past school year.
Yeah, we expect, it appears that the DOE is right on track as far as their commitment to having data to us by the middle of July. Everything that we're seeing out of my office
Right.
right now, as far as, right now we're in that window of requests for rescores, and that seems to be following the timeline that the IDOE presented to us. So we anticipate that scores will come out when they said they would, which is about the middle of July. So whenever then, technology and HR and all those entities, Charles could probably talk to that more than I can as far as when potentially we can produce a stipend, but we're hopeful that we'll at least have data soon.
and luckily, we were not one of the, how many schools was it? Was it 18 or so schools, including one entire district in Rochester, that got the wrong instructions? In one case, got the wrong instructions from Pearson and used calculators on the non-calculator part.
Yeah.
So now what? They're going to, I guess, just bring them all in this summer and retest?
Yeah, I doubt that happened.
Boy, wouldn't you like to do that?
But yeah, we were not one of those districts. We had a couple things here or there, but nothing
Yeah,
of any
yeah.
kind of significance to, that we have no large number of students that have undetermined scores. I mean, we
Right.
have your typical, those who might have been absent for whatever reason.
Laura's far more optimistic. We'll get the scores when we get them.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that her optimism will win out. But there's still glitches. And so we'll get them when we get them. And part of what we've worked with FWA to do is not rely necessarily on what happens at the state. Thank you, FWA, for being patient as we've worked through the last 5 years. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Exactly.
So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we have it's recommended that the board approve the application for and the receipt of advancement from the school technology advancement account in the amount of $587,540 for the 17-18 school year. The school technology advancement account provides funds annually for school systems to purchase computer technology for student instruction. The Fort Wayne Community Schools uses these monies to fund learning and technology plans of our schools. The request of $587,540 is based on a guideline provided by the state of $500 for each 25 students. So I guess you can get a lot of technology for $20 per student. Funds are provided in the form of a loan with a very low interest rate. The last loan under this program had an interest rate of 1%. Funds would be budgeted in the debt service fund to repay this loan beginning in 2019. Questions will be addressed by technology coordinators Rick Herber and Diana Fulton. So do we have a motion and second?
I move approval.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jordan. Any questions?
What did, any significant changes occurred with this?
The formula is still the same.
Okay.
And so this is a loan that we get each year?
Yeah, and the
And
interest rates.
just use it to implement the technology plan that we already have?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, and now, Glenna, you want to take the
Yes.
last item, our policy
Yes, I'll be
committee?
happy to do so. So today it is recommended that the board approve the changes to the Fort Wayne Community Schools bylaws and policies made by the policy committee. The following series of policies were reviewed. The 0-100s, which is the bylaws, the 1,000s, administration, 8,000, covered operations, 9,000 was relations. The policy committee is made up of board president Julie Hollingsworth and board members Glenna Yale and Ann Duff, as well as assistant to the superintendent for strategic initiatives Laura Kane and legal counsel David Amon from the administration. Changes made to the bylaws and policies reflect changes in the law and practices of the district. Redlined and clean versions of the policies were provided to the entire board in advance of the meeting. Board bylaws and policies were available to the public on the FWCS website. The updated versions will replace older ones. So basically, for a couple of years now, we have been reviewing and going through the process of evaluating how applicable the policies have been. And the policies cover almost every aspect of how we conduct business throughout our district. So it's been an important process, and it really took off this year when David Maines and Laura King pitched in and helped us get on track and plow through, because when I first came on board, I asked for the policies, and they gave me a binder that was this thick. And so we've been reviewing all these different policies. We're not quite done, but this, we've gotten a very good start on it. So I recommend that we do pass and adopt these new policies.
Okay, do we have a motion for approval?
She just did.
Yeah. Did you?
Okay, Glenna, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
If back then they
Any
find-
questions, comments?
I'd just like to say, because I don't think the board would say this of themselves, but David and Laura have done a phenomenal job of getting things organized. But the three of you have also committed to coming to meetings regularly, and it takes a lot of time and effort to read through these policies and really kind of look at every single word and comma. So I wanted to thank you, because it took off because you committed to doing it. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, there have
It's
been
riveting.
words and commas we adjusted.
Yes, quite a few.
And thanks, David and Laura, I mean, because you've done the yeoman's job of rewriting a lot of what in some cases were fairly wordy and archaic documents. And I'm just shocked that we haven't gotten comments from anyone else. So we must have
Surprise,
done a
surprise.
fabulous job, Ann, Glenna.
Fabulous.
Good job. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that brings us to the end of our new business, and we have no reports for tonight. Our next meeting is about a month from now, so some people can go on vacation and enjoy July. So we'll meet again on Monday, July 24th. And Steve, you want to begin member comments?
Sure. I just returned from Dallas from a national conference. I'm currently serving as chair of the National Council of Hispanic School Board Members, and by virtue of that role, I serve on 2 national boards, the National School Boards Association's Board of Directors, and then the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. And part of the track at the conference this week was education, and got to meet another source, and a good source with respect to tracking ESSA development by state, the Education Commission of the states. And I will send you the link because they're putting out regular publications on that, and good discussion from a number of people on this panel about what states are doing, if there are any states that are looking at innovative ways to take a look at how schools are rated, and how the new law is rolled out. So I'll provide information on that. A couple of other interesting aspects of the conference. Early on, a small group of board members went to the new Toyota American headquarters in Plano, which is about 45 minutes north of Dallas, and they have just finished building this massive complex and it's beautiful, that will hold 6,000 people. They're actively interested in looking for hiring people, and I made a pitch to their folks about whether at a time in the future we might talk about STEM and STEAM, that we get female engineers that would serve as role models to our students. But a very impressive company and complex, and just unbelievable as to what they're doing there. They seem to have a really, really good culture. Had a chance to meet the new Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta, and we had a small meeting between him and the board, and they have the Department of Labor has just launched a new initiative. He first talked about it or characterized it as apprenticeship programs, but what it really is experience-based learning. They like the apprenticeship model, and this really is for post-secondary education, but I think the application really is really nice, using the apprenticeship model where people would go to school but also have a work experience tied to that. And so they're going to be looking for communities that have those types of partnerships to offer students. I think that's really exciting. I mean, there's nothing that beats an opportunity to actually put your hands on the work or to meet face-to-face with people.
And get paid while you're doing it.
And get paid while you're doing it. So that's pretty exciting. So while I was there, I picked up the Sunday morning edition of the Dallas Morning News, and lo and behold, is a story on page 3 about what high school kids are doing, and it was really a piece developed by the New York Times. They syndicated it, the Morning News picked it up, but 2 of the 4 pictures in the newspaper are of 2 Northrop High School students. And it talks, and the students are Chanel Schrader and Isaiah Harris, and they were profiled because they are among the growing number of high school graduates that aren't going to college for several reasons. There's lots of jobs out there. They don't want to go to school, or they can't afford to go to school. This article cited 30% of this year's 3 million graduates choosing the workforce. And it profiled a little bit about what Chanel and Isaiah are doing. Not a lot of formal learning, low entry-level, low-paying jobs, but it really is, I think, important for us to recognize how important the work that we've just really revved up with respect to college and career pathways with our folks across the street with Shanita Piper and Martin, and how important it's going to be to understand the skills that our local employers really are going to require of our graduates. So anyway, there they are, and they've made national news, and I'm sure this is going to be in a number of newspapers, not only the New York Times, but everybody who picks up the syndicated work of the New York Times and runs it. So anyway, great trip, and there's lots of information that I'll be more than happy to share with board members.
I was fortunate enough to go down to a training session that had to do with the financial and also a summary of the changes in the laws that the legislature made. And that conference was very informative. Of course, Kathy's probably very well aware of what that means as far as changes in the way we keep track of all our books. But the thing that I came away with kind of dovetails off of what you were sharing, is that there is going to be a new partnership, or a stronger partnership, I guess, between the Department of Education, Indiana Department of Education, and then Workforce Development. And then each school district is to begin to not just partner with the local businesses, but also find out what they need our students to come out of school knowing. Because obviously, a rural community might be having to prepare kids for agriculture or other industries in that area. We, of course, live in a very large urban area, and so there's no way for us to really survey everybody to find out what type of jobs our kids are going to need to fulfill. But that's part of the direction that education is moving, is to strengthen those partnerships with the local area, regional, really, area businesses, and then prepare kids who can come out ready for some of these jobs and maybe not necessarily go on to college. So I expect that that's going to be something we will be working on as a district in the future, ongoing in the near future.
I have no comments this evening.
I have no comments.
I attended the Indiana State Board Association's Legislative Committee meeting, which was on Saturday. And I just wanted to recognize Brian Smith, who's the Executive Director of the ISBA, and he will be retiring, I believe, in next month. And so they are looking for someone to fill his shoes, which will be I'm sure, difficult task. His time there, he's given a voice to the ISBA at the State House, and I think that some of our legislators are now asking the ISBA opinions and things like that because of Brian's involvement, so just wanted to recognize him. But we basically put together what the ISBA should focus on for the next legislative session. Of course, accountability, for more accountability for schools that accept vouchers. I think that's,
Some?
Accountability, some accountability would be nice. Accountability, just like public schools, obviously that's what he wants to push. Have the same accountability, accept all students, you can't ask what their ISEP scores are and things like that, and, accept them just like a public school would. Again, we can dream, but you never know. But I think it's really important now because of what is happening at the federal level and what may come this way as far as vouchers or educational savings accounts or whatever. And then this was part of the agenda last year, but are you, Steve, or is that your position on the Redevelopment Commission here? 'Cause they, this session, they wanted to have the school board person be a voting member, and that did not fly, I believe, because the bill had many parts to it. So Representative Cook agrees to carry it as a single bill, and Brian believes it has a good chance of passing, so you could be a voting member for that. But those are the main things that I remember, so we'll see what happens
Thanks, Ann.
this session.
No comments.
Dr. Robinson, was there anything you wanted to?
Almost scared to say that by the time we come back, we will be starting our beginning of school activities. Board members, there are several meetings that we'll send you more detail. We ask you to save a couple of dates. And we, last week, worked on finalizing our work with Tom Gusky. He will be here. And we're also having a researcher from the University of Chicago. So I'll just get those dates out. We are narrowing that window, but it's scary. Right after the next board meeting, we're back in school.
And we're back.
There was a really good article in the Journal Gazette about our continuing education program, and Director Pat Bowles, and also highlighted not only the continuing education program for adults, but the whole neighborhood connection programs that, and classes that Fort Wayne Community Schools offers. You know, if you want to learn some additional computer skills, or take a yoga class, or I mean, there's exercise class, I mean, a whole variety of woodworking, welding, which are very popular. So there's a whole array of classes that are offered by Neighborhood Connection, and it's a kind of a self-funded program, and really, really a great asset for our community, I think. So I just wanted to, you know, give those programs a shout out. You know, Steve and Glenna, you've kind of went to the, you know a little bit more maybe about ESSA than the rest of us, that every school, Every Student Succeeds Act, is that what it is? I don't know if you noticed that, but 3 states have already submitted their plans. One is.
17, yeah.
17?
17
Well,
states.
3 have gotten, what I read, 3 have gotten feedback.
Oh, okay.
And one of the states, Delaware, is proposed to do almost exactly what Indiana is doing as far as college and career ready, and that is measure students' college and career readiness with IB, dual credit, and AP courses, and they got shot down by the Department of Education. And I read a blog from the Fordham Institute, which is a very, very conservative organization, and they were not happy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I mean, it seemed a fairly reasonable proposal to them and to me. I mean, we've already been doing that in Indiana, but there was something about it they didn't like. Then I also, this is probably the 3rd time I've seen this since the legislature passed the last budget, and they, you know, continue to brag about the fact that they raised the basic student amount for every student. And, you know, that just obscures the fact of what they really did, which is partly rob complexity to increase the basic amount for every school corporation. And when you read it, it makes you think as though, oh, every school corporation in the state is getting an increase, but that's just not so. I mean, there are school corporations in the state of Indiana whose budgets are going to decrease over the next 2 years, and not because they're losing students, just because they're getting less money. So, you know, that's not quite truth in advertising. And you also might want to be on the lookout for the very first research study of the Indiana voucher program is out. It's being peer reviewed right now. There were 2 educational researchers, one from Notre Dame, one from Kentucky, who collaborated on this. So it hasn't been published yet, but you can see the results. And basically what I've read is it shows that for students in math, that they really, their performance drops in the first 2 years, but it takes them 4 years to catch up. And then for English language arts, there's no benefit to being in the voucher program. So it begs the question, is it good public policy to spend more money on a program that shows that kind of result? I mean, you know, if somebody came up with a more expensive way to build roads and there was no benefit, or it took 4 years for the roads to catch up to the cheaper roads that were being built, I doubt if taxpayers would be happy with that. So you may want to, for those of you who are interested, that information is going to be, well, part of it is out there, but the entire study will soon be coming out there. So that's all I have. Anyone interested in adjourning?
Move for adjournment.
Thanks, Steve.
Here?
Thanks, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And the microphone is open for anyone that